So now that you know how Code Interpreter can generally be used, let's explore prompt engineering with Code Interpreter enabled. And the good news here is that in general, the same prompt engineering techniques about which you learned earlier in this course also do apply when working with Code Interpreter. For example, we could create and send a prompt like this to ChatGPT with Code Interpreter enabled. We're giving ChatGPT a role and a goal again, and then some additional context. For example, the input data for this investment, which I want to calculate with that message here. So the amount initially invested, for example, the expected annual rate of return, an additional amount invested that will be invested every year at the end of that year, the duration of this investment, so how long we want to hold it until we want to get our money back. And then I'm giving ChatGPT some additional context regarding the expected result it should produce. So some details about that result it should generate. And with that, with Code Interpreter enabled, if we send a prompt like this to ChatGPT, it will again try to solve this task, and all our extra details will help ChatGPT solve that task. But now, as you can see here, it starts by giving me a formula I could use to derive the value of my investment and all these intermediate results. But it then also goes ahead and produces some code and executes that code to give me the results for that investment. Now here in this case here, it actually produced some wrong results at first. It produced some wrong results because the formatting of those numbers is off, and more importantly, that second row here contains some incorrect result. The interest gained in this second year is not 1,308, but instead 708 would be the correct result here. But for some reason, here, ChatGPT messed up with the code it produced and executed, and therefore, of course, we can use prompting techniques we already know. For example, we can send a follow-up prompt here where we tell ChatGPT to improve the formatting and where we make ChatGPT aware of that mistake it introduced here. And in my case, it then indeed went ahead and gave you some details on how it should derive the result, and it then performed that calculation again, based on updated code. And here it actually did that multiple times, since it wasn't happy with the results it got. So it gradually tried to improve itself. And with that, finally, it then did produce some correct output for me here. Now I want to mention that it's also possible that you got the correct output right after sending that first prompt, so that you did not need to send any follow-up prompts. And it's also possible that even after sending this follow-up prompt and even more follow-up prompts, ChatGPT was not able to produce the correct results. I had both cases whilst preparing for this recording here. Because ChatGPT in general, and of course also Code Interpreter, still is not perfect. After all, ChatGPT is still able to hallucinate and produce wrong results, and it's therefore, of course, also able to produce wrong code. So it absolutely can happen that ChatGPT produces code that does execute correctly, but that simply contains some logical bugs and errors that therefore lead to wrong results. And hence, even with Code Interpreter enabled, you of course should always be careful and double check the results ChatGPT is generating because they might contain errors.